Is President Donald Trump about to single-handedly drag the U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier fleet back to the 1950s? Or is he about to save it from a multi-billion-dollar technological disaster that has been crippling America's naval power for years? On October 29, 2025, the White House announced a move that has sent a seismic shockwave through the Pentagon and the entire defense industry. President Trump says he plans to sign an executive order compelling the U.S. Navy to abandon its high-tech futuristic launch systems and return to goddamned steam. This order targets the most expensive and advanced warship ever built, the USS Gerald R. and all future carriers like it. It's a direct assault on a program that has cost taxpayers over $13 billion for just one ship. This is a story about a clash between a president's gut instinct and a generation of military planning. It's about magnets versus steam, digital versus analog, and the future of American dominance on the high seas. To understand what's happening, you need to understand the promise, the failure, and the unthinkable cost of turning back the clock. For over half a century, the formula for an American aircraft carrier was simple: a nuclear-powered, floating, sovereign airbase, launching jets off the deck using powerful steam-powered catapults. It was proven, reliable, and the undisputed king of the seas. But the Navy dreamed of something more. They dreamed of the Ford-class supercarrier. The heart of this dream was two revolutionary, game-changing pieces of technology. First, the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, or EMALS. Instead of a violent, steam-powered piston slamming a jet into the air, EMALS was designed to be a massive, precision-controlled magnetic slingshot. The benefits were supposed to be huge. A smoother launch put less stress on the planes, extending their lifespan. It could be tuned to launch a wider range of aircraft, from heavy, fully loaded fighters to the lightweight drones that are the future of naval aviation. And most importantly, it was designed to be faster and more efficient, allowing the carrier to generate 25% more sorties, more flights per day, than its predecessors. In a war with a peer competitor like China, that 25% difference is the margin between victory and defeat. The second innovation was the Advanced Weapons Elevators, or AWE. These weren't your typical cable and pulley elevators. They were high-speed, electromagnetic platforms designed to move bombs and missiles from the ship's magazines to the flight deck with unprecedented speed and efficiency. More weapons on deck, faster, also means a higher sortie rate. Together, EMALS and ABE were the cornerstones of the all-electric digital warship of the future. But the dream quickly turned into a logistical and financial nightmare. From the moment he took office, President Trump has had a personal vendetta against these systems. He's visited the ships, talked to the sailors, and his assessment has been blunt. The catapult is quite important. I said, "What is this, sir?" "This is our digital catapult system." He said, "Well, we're going to this because we wanted to try the new." I said, "You're going to digital?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "It doesn't sound good to me." Digital. They have a $100 million cost overrun on the bill. His criticism wasn't just based on a gut feeling against the word digital. It was based on the staggering, undeniable failures of the program. The Navy's own target for EMALS was for it to be able to launch an aircraft 4,166 times between any critical failure. As of its early deployment, the system was demonstrating a launch rate of just a few hundred times between failures. That's not a minor shortfall. It's a catastrophic failure of reliability. Imagine your car, advertised to go 4,000 miles between breakdowns, stalling every 400 miles. Now imagine that car costs $7 billion and is the centerpiece of national defense. The elevators were even worse. When the USS Ford was commissioned, only a handful of its 11 advanced elevators were actually working. For years, the Navy struggled to get these critical components operational, a flaw that made it impossible for the carrier to achieve its designed sortie rate. This is the context for the president's frustration. He sees a system that was promised to be better, faster, and more efficient, but in reality is less reliable and astronomically more expensive than the steam systems it replaced. In his view, you don't need to be, in his words, Albert Einstein to see that the program is a failure. And his solution is simple: cut our losses and go back to what works. On the surface, the president's order seems like a common-sense solution. If the new tech is broken, use the old tech. But here's the critical part of the story that makes this a military and engineering crisis. You can't just swap them out. Ordering the Navy to put steam catapults on a Ford-class carrier is like ordering a car company to put a steam locomotive engine into a Tesla. The entire platform was designed from the keel up around an all-electric architecture. First, there's the issue of power. EMALS runs on immense bursts of electricity generated by the ship's nuclear reactors and stored in massive flywheel accumulators. Steam catapults run on steam. The Ford-class reactors and their power distribution systems were specifically designed for the electrical load of EMALS. They were not designed to have massive amounts of steam diverted to power catapults. A redesign would require a fundamental re-engineering of the ship's core power plant and plumbing. Second, there's the issue of space and design. Steam catapults are a massive network of incredibly complex machinery. They require huge steam accumulator tanks, piping, and freshwater reservoirs, all things the Ford was designed without to save space and weight. Retrofitting them would be an engineering nightmare, requiring a complete gutting and redesign of the ship's internal structure. It would affect everything from the ship's balance and stability to its very structural integrity. The Navy has estimated that such a redesign, even just for future ships in the class, would take years and cost billions of dollars. It would delay the entry into service of the next carriers, the USS Enterprise and USS Doris Miller, by half a decade or more. At a time when the carrier fleet is already stretched thin, this would create a dangerous carrier gap, reducing America's ability to project power around the globe. Ironically, the president's order to save money would likely cost taxpayers billions more than simply fixing the troubled new systems. But the cost of this decision isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in national prestige and military advantage, particularly in the face of a rising China. 3 years ago, China launched its own third aircraft carrier, the Fujian. And what technology is on its deck? Electromagnetic catapults. China even released footage showing the carrier successfully launching 3 different carrier-based aircraft, indicating that while the ship has not yet officially entered service, its key systems have clearly matured at a rapid pace. The strategic message is clear. China is fielding the very same next-generation technology that America's own president is now trying to abandon. The optics are a strategic nightmare. It projects an image of an America that can no longer innovate, that fumbles its most ambitious projects while its chief rival masters them. This decision would effectively cede the technological high ground in carrier aviation to Beijing. Furthermore, it strikes at the heart of the Ford class's entire reason for being. The primary military justification for spending so much on these new carriers was their ability to generate a higher sortie rate, to put more planes in the air, faster than China's carriers could. If the president's order delays the fleet and forces a reversion to less efficient technology, that critical advantage evaporates. We would be left with a smaller, delayed fleet that is only marginally better than the Nimitz-class carriers they are supposed to replace, all while China's own fleet grows larger and more advanced. So we are left with a monumental dilemma. President Trump is not wrong about the fundamental failures of the EMALS and AWE programs. They have been a case study in cost overruns and poor performance. His demand for accountability and for systems that actually work on the battlefield is the demand of a commander-in-chief who is tired of excuses. However, his proposed solution is a logistical and strategic impossibility. It is a backwards-looking decision that ignores the engineering realities of the platform and the geopolitical realities of the 21st century. This executive order represents a historic clash between a president's demand for practical results and the military's long-term strategic planning. The core question is this: is this a leader making a tough but necessary call to cut his losses on a failed multi-billion-dollar experiment? Or is it a reckless, impulsive decision based on a surface-level understanding of the technology that could cripple the future of American naval supremacy for a generation? The answer to that question won't be known for years, but the consequences of this order, if it stands, will be felt on the high seas for the next 50 years.